morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends where you're watching this. My name is Shivji. I'm one of the principals at Optima Living, and I'm so excited today to be here with Cailey Massey, who is the founder and owner of Artfull Enrichment. And today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including maximizing your golden years. So Cailey, let's jump right in. We want to talk about maximizing golden years. And interesting enough, you approach this from an art perspective. And I think sometimes people would think about this in many different ways. Yesterday, or very recently rather, Stats Canada came out with some interesting stats. One of them has been the fact that seniors over the age of 85 are the fastest growing group in the country. They are going to be marking huge milestones in many, many different ways. And one of the things that we think about is they sometimes label that as a crisis. And they label that, that aging as a crisis because they say, well, what's going to happen for the care of our elders? And what's interesting is, even from a latest census perspective, they've said, look, since 2016, the number of people aged 85 and older grew by 12%. More than twice of the overall population, that's 5.2%. But we come back to this idea they call it a crisis. I don't think it's a crisis. I think it's exciting. I think that if we help people maximize their golden years, it could be super exciting.
Yeah, and I think art can be an incredible way to do that, to take advantage of that time in your life where maybe you're going through a transitional phase in your life. Maybe you've recently retired or not so recently retired, and you have some extra time on your hands to dabble in different skills and hobbies, and art could definitely be that for some people. And I think especially for people who have never tried or tried painting or drawing or anything under that kind of umbrella of art, later in life may be that it's never too late to try something new, and I think it's just a matter of kind of being open to that new opportunity of creating.
When you think a little bit about creativity, what are some of the health benefits of creativity?
Well, when people are creative, they're more likely to be open-minded to new experiences, because essentially being creative is thinking in innovative and new ways, and translating a new idea into something experiential or tangible, and that can allow people to maybe learn about themselves, which is definitely has mental health benefits, because you can maybe become a bit more self-assured, improve your self-confidence, which has health benefits. You can also lower your stress levels. We find a lot of the times when we see people engaging in an art program, if they came to the program really stressed, and then they start painting and becoming really one with the moment and very present, all of the noise and the chaos that causes daily stress can just kind of evaporate, and you become so in tune with yourself that can be such an incredible benefit, again, to your mental health and down to your physical health as well. And there have been studies, one in particular by a gentleman named Dr. Gene Cohen, who found that there were a lot of health benefits, even going from improving people's fine motor skills, taking less medication when they participate in consistent art programming. And I think I could go on and on. There's so many benefits for people, but I think the main one that I at least feel and experience is being present and kind of removing the stress and the outside chaos and noise.
And what does it do, and particularly from the programs that Artful Engagement does, what does it do for people's efficacy, or self-efficacy rather, and their confidence levels? Because I've definitely seen that, and I'd love to even hear any examples you have of some of the Optima residents that have been working with Artful Engagement and what it's done for them. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about the impact that this has, and particularly what some of your programs have had for individuals that you've experienced or seen.
So I think the interesting thing is, and I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit about people identifying as creative, but a lot of the times people are very intimidated to attend an art program because they feel like they can't produce the work that they want to produce. And I think where the confidence comes in is where people they go, they participate, and they surprise themselves with what they're capable of. And that really instills confidence in people, it instills self efficacy. And I think that can not only stay with that person in the program, but it can also um, kind of go out into other areas of their life. So one woman we've been who was attending an art program, she was really hesitant at first, and the more often she came, the more her confidence developed, and then she started attending other programs and engaging with people at dinner, and she really kind of came out of her shell because she found confidence in that moment, and that confidence stayed with her into other areas of her life, which is really powerful to see, I think.
Yeah, it plays for me into this whole idea of, you know, coming and I guess particularly on the Optima side because we engage with artful engagement regularly, but this idea of coming to an Optima community, what can it do for you? And sometimes people think it's, oh, okay, they'll give me food and I'll have a house or a place to live. And yes, those are the basics, but um, it's actually more about how we help you live your best life and how we create that welcoming environment, but also where we can give you some of those things.
And I think we kind of touched on this, but I think what most people are looking for is connection and meaning and purpose. And I think um, what Optima has done beautifully with Artful Enrichment programs is they've taken the program beyond a 1 hour workshop and taken it into the community and the greater community and connected with people that don't necessarily even attend some of the programs. So, for example, um, one of Optima's communities has hung artwork all throughout the building. And it's a conversation piece. It gets family members talking about it. It gets the artist sharing their work, and which builds confidence within them. And then it gets their fellow community members involved as well because they're looking at the artwork. I know they actually created a poetry collection book, and they used some artful enrichment artworks in there to kind of illustrate some of their poems. So there's so many different ways that these that things can be taken beyond that 1 hour experience, and I think some of Optima communities have really demonstrated that.
Did you ever anticipate that as when you founded this program, when you created it, that people would be going into poetry and going to other stuff, and that you'd be kind of the catalyst for all of that?
You know what? It's been the goal since day one to because I think there's so many people that are there's such a variety of people in older adult communities, and not art making is not going to be for everybody. So how do we connect with people who are not attending the programs and get them involved and really build a creative culture within the community rather than just here's the program, take it, use it, and move on.
So
We want really a long lasting impact.
yeah, so how do we destigmatize it, and how do we help seniors kind of overcome the barriers to participating in these things?
I think having a gradual introduction to art for some people is really helpful. So I know in one community, they some people who were a little hesitant about actually participating in the art programs, they would come and sit and watch and chat and just get comfortable and familiar with the people attending the program. And then slowly, as they started attending the program, the facilitator or staff member would start supplying them with art supplies, and then they kind of slowly picked up the brush. And I think just allowing everybody to move at their own pace and and just let people know that it's not about creating the Mona Lisa. It's about having your own individual interpretation of of an art project. And that's the most important thing is what you create, not trying to produce something to look exactly like something
Well, no,
else.
I've been told that you're going to teach me how to paint the Mona Lisa today, so I'm looking forward to it. I have very high aspirations for this, so we'll see what happens in that regard. But tell me, as we finish up, but I know there's a couple of questions I really want to ask you, and one is like, what are some ways that that seniors can get creative? How can they? I mean, is that limited to art making? If people are at home, I mean, they're not at an Optima Living community. They may not live in Calgary, in Alberta, or British Columbia, or they may not live with us yet, but I always try to teach my kids to say not yet, right? To kind of be more that resilience thinking. But what can people do to be creative and start to get creative, even if they're at home today watching this?
Just some quick examples. I think pick up a pen and paper and sketch something. The first thing that comes to your head. And worst comes to worst, you can always throw it in the garbage if you want to, but just try to do a stream of consciousness drawing. So you're just thinking and drawing and sketching and kind of blurting it all out through a drawing. I think collaging is a really accessible way to kind of tap into your creative side, but also it's not limited to art making. Cooking is a very creative outlet. You're kind of intuitively adding ingredients, and unless you're following a recipe, maybe it's a bit less intuitive, but cooking, gardening, arranging your furniture differently, or I don't know, painting something in your house. There's lots of different options. I think also talking about art. So look at a piece on the internet or something, look at an artwork and just sit with it and start to think about what your gut reactions are to that piece. And that's going to get your mind thinking in a creative way. So there's lots and lots of different avenues you can take.
Yeah, I guess like maybe I think you can even think about it from the perspective like gardening would also be a really good example. As well as, well, there's, I think, even singing and other stuff. But we talk a lot about the sensorial experience of living within an Optima Living community, because the five senses are so important in so many different ways. And so I'm sure one can get creative in all sorts of ways. I still think I'm a good singer, but my family seems to relegate me just to the shower. So maybe it's just creative for me and not others. But tell me about what you think, what is it about creativity that really encourages kind of positive emotion?
I think I kind of touched on this at the beginning of our conversation, but I think being open is goes really hand in hand with being creative. Because if you're open to new possibilities and experiences and thinking in a different way, looking at things from a different perspective, that can have a really positive impact on your outlook in life. You can be a lot more forgiving, you can be a lot more understanding, and I just think, yeah, I think being open goes really hand in hand with being creative.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because one, I'm very open, but I'm not very artistic, so at least maybe I can still be considered creative. And so I'm looking forward to maybe spending some time with you in your Bob Ross style expertise, but maybe help me learn a little bit about painting as we go through. But I do really want to thank you for the time and such an interesting conversation. I mean, starting off with this whole crisis of elders, but really then coming back to saying, well, hold on a second, does it have to be a crisis? Why can't we help people live their best lives anyways? And isn't this a great opportunity to help a very large growing percent of the population get creative, reduce their stress levels, look at ways where they can have improved quality of life, look at ways where they can be open-minded and they can engage and we can destigmatize people, we can give them confidence, we can help them find things like even cooking and gardening that may be creative. And after all of that, we may actually allow me to be artistic. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think people will always surprise themselves, and I think they'll often amaze themselves with what they're capable of if they just try something a little different and new.
Well, listen, thanks so much for your time. I'm looking forward to our future engagements in many ways, but I do appreciate it, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.